Ely Cathedral. Now, when I was at school, I believed that for a town to be a city, it had to have a cathedral. However, I just found out now that Ely's only really been a city since 1974, because it took a special Queen's Charter to grant that. So it is not true that to be a city you must have a cathedral. So you can see the cathedral has its Christmas gift and food fair on the 18th and 19th of November this year. After the Battle of Hastings, it was a sort of revolution within society in England, and from being Saxon to being Norman, new type of law, new language, and this didn't obviously go down well with everyone. And one of the people it didn't go down well with was one character called Herod the Wake, who resisted in the Fenlands. He had local knowledge. He knew the way through the fens, the waterways. The Normans didn't, so he carried on the guerrilla war. The Normans came up with a good offer. They came to the monks from here and said, well, we'll build you a magnificent cathedral, like some of the other ones we have in France. Just hand us Herod. So the monks complied, and they got this magnificent cathedral as blood money for Herod, who was killed, executed. So that's where this magnificent building comes from. That's why it's here. There we see stone of the type that was brought here by barge. This is Ely Cathedral, 13th century to the large part, although the cathedrals existed here since the 7th century, and it was the Normans who started the reconstruction of that building. But what we see largely is 13th century, to a large extent. Not everything, including this tower, which is 12th century, for example. Now, I'm going to have a walk around it and tell you a little bit about it. I'm not a church historian, so there's probably lots of things I missed out or don't know, but it might be good for an introduction to it. Unfortunately today it's not like yesterday. It's my second day here, and as you can hear, it's now pouring with rain, so I want to get inside somewhere. This is now the main entrance, but it was formerly, I think, a side entrance. It's a place like this where monks would meet women if they had to do some business with them, buy some food or something from them, and because women weren't allowed in, and so they'd meet here. But it's quite logically the main entrance because that's where the street is. In this direction is a stained glass museum, which one can see. During the Reformation, much of the stained glass was vandalised up in 1537, 1538. Another thing which happened was the heads of saints were chopped off in the statues of them, and that we can see here. So this abbey was originally founded in 672 by Etheldreda, also known as St Etheldreda, who was the daughter of the East Anglian King Anna. So men and women could probably just turn up here in those days. Now, it must have been destroyed by the Vikings at some time, because there's nothing actually left now. Although it was refounded in 970 CE, and allegedly because holy relics from St Etheldreda was somewhere around here. But what we see today is in fact Norman. The stone comes, or pre-Norman I should say really. The stone came from Barnock in Northamptonshire, which was then owned by Peterborough Abbey, and in exchange for the stone, Peterborough Abbey was to be paid 8,000 eels per year. Now, according to the Domesday Book, this was the second wealthiest abbey in England, with only Glastonbury being wealthier. Nonetheless, the Normans went on building more and more stuff. As far as the churches were concerned, all churches got a considerable makeover, and such as this one here, and that was largely due to the fact that following the siege of Ely, Harry with the wake, and the fact that the monks had handed them over to the Normans, and in exchange for that they got this abbey. Rebuilding started around 1079 or thereabouts. Went on in fits and starts, because one of the abbots, he was helping himself to the cash until he got appointed Bishop of Durham, and that was one Ranulph Flambard. There were several posts, and so he kept all the jobs vacant so he could have the cash. But once he went off to Durham, then construction continued to go on. So the nave was built from 1115 to roof timbers probably only 1120 or thereabouts. It took until 1140 to complete the nave, and the tower, which we can see from outside, was built under Bishop Geoffrey Riedel from 1174 to 1189. Considerable work took place during the first half of the 13th century, and King Henry III and Prince Edward the Black Prince in 1252 were here for its reconsecration. And much of what we can see today, in fact dates to that period. So it was very similar to, for example, Westminster Abbey. In Britain, we can see lots of lecterns made from eagles. So the Bible or other material is put there, and whoever is reading will do it from that position. Toilets on the left. The father of a former girlfriend was asked by the village priest why he didn't go to church, and he said, "No, I can't hold myself in there for such a long time. There's no toilets there." Strange that they spend all this money on elaborate decoration, but no space for toilets. Well, they've done something here. This is the Lady Chapel. And in here we can see the vandalism that was done almost 500 years ago during the Reformation, lopping off the heads of the saints. And I suspect this was once all stained glass. Well, that won't. Here that's meant to be an image of Mary at the time she was told that she was to give birth to Jesus. And she seems to be accepting her fate, although it needs to be pointed out she doesn't look like somebody from the area of where she was born. Well, she's already dyed her hair, and her waist, I would say, looks a bit as though she's been feeding herself on Coca-Cola. Not what you'd expect from a person who was then aged around 16 years old. But then again, maybe she was a bit on the fat side. Don't understand why she's got her hands up in the air. Maybe that's in sort of resignation as to her fate. Well, of course, she's just giving birth to the child, not anything worse. I find it very difficult, though, to believe that during the Reformation there were so many characters who were prepared to do this vandalism. There may have been people who really hated the church. I don't suppose many people actually agreed with Henry VIII making himself head of the church. Maybe those didn't like it because of the way that they were taxed and the obligations the church placed on them. But given the fact many of them would have believed they were going to hell for it, it shows to me that perhaps the level of disbelief amongst the people in the 16th century was greater than we would now believe. Of course, many lives were lost during the Reformation. The Lady Chapel dates to 1321, and the work began under somebody called Alan of Walsingham, who was a sacrist. So it's 30 metres long and 14 metres wide. However, within 1 year, on February in fact 1322, work had to stop because possibly due to things being built here, one of the towers collapsed, and that had to be repaired. Now, what we have here is we've got these booths which have been cut into the stone, so they're with per-bit marble pillars, and there's 3 arches per bay, as you can see. And once there would have been other statues around as well, but they were all destroyed with the vandalism being done by Bishop Thomas Goodrich, of which I mentioned earlier. But this served as the parish church for the town until 1938. On the 18th of November 1539, this cathedral was nationalised. That's to say, the Royal Commissioners took over it, and all of its possessions then went to the king, and the king and his councillors had to decide what they were going to do with the cathedrals. So on the 10th of September 1541 they granted a new charter, and the former prior was reappointed as the first dean. Now, under Bishop Thomas Goodrich, who I mentioned earlier, he was responsible for the destruction which took place, and much of this happened at the beginning of the 1540s. Now, during the Civil War, whereas in many places churches and things were destroyed, he averred that the vandalism did actually take place, probably because it was done so thoroughly beforehand. Also, let's bear in mind that Oliver Cromwell's own house was only 300 or 400 metres from here, so nothing really happened to it. Although the Bishop Matthew Wren, he was arrested in 1642 at the beginning of the war, and he spent 18 years in the Tower until Charles II's restoration in 1660, restoration of the monarchy, I should say. The 1648 Parliament wanted church buildings to be demolished so that the stone could be used for other things, but that didn't happen in this case. As I said, because I think that because Oliver Cromwell lived very close. So that's the octagonal tower, which dates to the 14th century, which replaced the tower that was up there that collapsed during construction for the Lady Chapel, I should say. I'll come down here. Now it's not clear what damage that caused to here, the choir, but it must have caused some damage because the stone had to fall somewhere. Just in front of the rood screen, we've got a commemoration of the place where the shrine of Etheldreda, Saint and Queen, who founded this house in 673 CE. Of course, there's nothing left of the original Saxon chapel. Services are still held here, and this morning there was a 8 o'clock service which was held in here, which is St Edmund's Chapel. Now, such a huge cathedral, and services being held in such a small room with only 12 seats. Now, St Edmund allegedly was a person who refused to renounce his Christian faith, and so he was killed by the Danes, who shot him with arrows and then chopped his head off. But as the story goes, a wolf came along, found his head and guarded it until his friends could take the head away for proper burial. This is a heating system. I think it's Victorian, probably put in place during the renovation work in the 19th century. But it's a very big church. It must get pretty nippy in here in winter.